To order. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you do have cell phones, if you wouldn't mind either putting them on vibrate or turning them off so as not to interrupt the meeting, that would be appreciated. A reminder to the board to speak into the microphones. All board members are present, and for those of you who were not here last night, I'd like to introduce our new board supervisor, Hugh Mulligan, who by default now has the biggest sign. I'm not sure what that means, but we'll live with it, I guess, so. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have 3 items on the agenda that we need to scratch for this evening. Number 8, we, I believe, will be contacting the League of Women Voters and offering our facility here if they would like to have a candidate forum for the people running for the First Assembly District. We will not introduce those people as a board. The easement, I believe we don't have the survey for number 12. And number 13, we have checked the agreement with the the Door County Land Trust. And basically what is being requested, we cannot honor that request because of the agreement we have with the Land Trust on the Grand View.
So 13's gone.
Yes, 13's out. So it's number 8, number 12, and number 13. Other than that, I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented with those 3 deletions.
Second.
Motion seconded by Gaz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes of the March 19th regular board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
Make a motion we approve the agenda, or the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mulligan, seconded by Forkert. All in favor indicate by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next, we have the treasurer's report. Janet?
For the month of March. In the municipal checking account, we began with a balance of $988,640.53. We transferred to checking, we transferred to North Shore Bank, and interest posted, bringing that balance to $588,675.94. In the money market account, we began with a balance of $460,395.65. We wrote a check for the payment for the fire truck, and interest posted, bringing that balance to $210,444.09. In the checking account, we began with a balance of $154,819.60. Deposits, FICA, we added back in a voided check. Payroll and disbursements brought that balance to $178,964.56. Utility district ended with their balance of $249,376.89. And in the North Shore Money Market account, we began with a balance of $515.84. The $250,000 deposit plus interest brought that balance to $250,522.46, with a balance in all town accounts at the end of March of $1,477,984.94.
Questions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I move we approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
Motion by Forkert, seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I also want to point out you should have had in your mailbox a copy of the February report that I did.
Yep.
Down at the bottom where I wrote the total for all town accounts. I had a little dyslexic thing happen. And on your report, it says 835,000. It is not, it's 853,000.
That's good dyslexia, though, actually.
Yeah, it was dyslexic in the writing. I did put it corrected, all the accounts were correct, it's just that number I wrote incorrect.
Okay, thank you. Bills, are there any questions on the bills that are presented? If not, the chair will make a motion to approve the bills as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gaz. Discussion, anybody? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next, we, we'll go on to public input. This is the opportunity for those in the audience to address the board on any subject they'd like. And also, if you'd like to address the board on any agendized subject, we'll get your name on the list and proceed with that. I would like to make one quick comment in reference to last night's meeting, the annual town meeting. The board will be discussing the motion that passed. There were only two motions last night, one passed, one failed. And the motion to pass, and I'm going to ask that, I believe, Carl, you were the one that made the motion. That motion has come up, memory serves me correct, the last three or annual meetings. And just for everybody's edification, there's a question about the potential conflict of interest with having town employees on boards. And I know Carl mentioned last night that it might appear as though that was a conflict of interest. And since it's come up in the last three meetings, I wonder if I could ask you, Carl, at the next meeting, because the board's going to discuss that particular issue, if you are aware, or anybody is aware, as a matter of fact, of an actual conflict of interest, we really need to know that so we can take action on that. And that would help us a lot in the course of that discussion. So if you could do that would be appreciated. Okay, if anybody has a general comment they'd like to make, if you'd step to the podium, please, and address the board. General comments,
I have a general question. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking us to do.
please.
Right.
Well, just as a point of clarification, I was asking Carl, and if he knows of anybody that, the conflict of interest,
Right, I understand that
Okay.
part, but you said something about
If-
discussing
if
it at
you-
another
if-
meeting.
if you or anybody else knows of a conflict of interest that has occurred in any one of the meetings that has a town employee on that committee, or, committee, we need to know that. Because we need to take action on that. Now-
I was actually prepared to make a general comment tonight, input, but I was going to wait until before item number 17, if you were going to allow public input before that agenda item number 17, related to that, the appointment of committees.
Do you want public input? Do you want to speak on 17?
If you are going to have it before, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would just do it now.
No, you're down for 17.
Okay. But I still don't understand. We will want to discuss this at another meeting, not tonight.
No. Well, it's not agendized for tonight.
I know that.
Right.
Okay,
So
well,
we
I'll
can't
make
really
my
discuss
comment
it.
before number 17 then. Thank you.
All right. Any other general comments before the board? Okay, let's go first row. Anybody want to speak to an agendized item, please? Jim?
11B.
Got that? John?
17.
17.
11B.
B, yeah.
11B is in black.
John was
Yeah,
what, 17?
17,
And
John?
item 11A,
All right, second row, I'm sorry.
Stephen Case.
And that was 11B also?
11A.
A? Okay. Anybody else? Peter?
16.
16? Susan?
14, 15, and 17?
Okay.
14.
15, 17. Third roll? fourth row. Jim?
Number 14, please.
Carol?
Number 17?
Right, we got you down already on that. Anybody else that row? And last row. Okay, then let's go on to, excuse me, number 9. We have representative here on the civility, and she is coming to the podium.
Yeah, I have quite a cold, so I'll try to speak
Okay.
clearly. I'm Shirley Senerigi, and I'm here again with the Civility Project, and I thank you for putting me on the agenda tonight. Since I was here in December, we have been busy meeting with towns and villages throughout the county, and it's been very interesting experience for me. I'm here tonight to formally announce that we will be conducting 2 trainings here in the northern part of the county, here in your facility. Thank you very much. I think it is a great facility, and it will work out well for these trainings. There are 2 two-hour sessions scheduled for May. One on Thursday evening, May 29th, and I've put registration forms at each supervisor station, and I've got a group of them on the table in the back. The dates again are May 29th, a Thursday evening from 6:30 until 8:30, and then again on Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The sessions are meant to be the same session, just repeated, but you're welcome to come twice. I think the discussion is always different depending on the audience and the group that you're with.
What was the time of that, Shirley, on Saturday?
On Saturday from 9 until 11. Anyone is welcome to attend. You can, again, register for one or both sessions. The sessions are all free. There is no charge. But we do need to have a count so that we can adequately prepare the resources and materials we want to share with people at the workshops. Of course, we are a nonprofit group and contributions are always welcomed, but I want anyone to feel that they can attend. There is absolutely no registration fee. People can register in 3 ways. One, by completing the registration form and mailing it to the address that's on the form. These forms will be available here at the town hall, and they will be at other town and village offices as of next Tuesday. I didn't get up here early enough tonight to drop them all off. So they'll be in town and village offices next Tuesday. They also will be available at the branches of the Bay Lake banks in the northern part of the county. So you'll have access to the forms in multiple locations. You can also register directly on the website of the Door County Civility Project. Across the top of our homepage, you'll see Sign the Pledge, Core Team, and Civility Training, among some other things. You just click on Civility Training and go down, and again, you can register for one option or both sessions. A third way that you could register is simply by calling 920-495-6156, and that number is also on the registration form. The training is being provided by 3 individuals. I think we're real lucky to have Bill Rizzo coming up from the University Extension Local Government Center in Madison. He has expertise in civility in local governments and really working on building community dialogue and deliberation. I think he offers a really nice range of programming for local governments and communities based on civility. And it really, his techniques really lay out civility as the basis for local governments to build on and become partners and collaborators with the people within their jurisdictions. He calls that whole package deliberative governance. I participated in a training with Bill in December, and I found him to be very knowledgeable, very helpful, and very interesting. So I think we'll all benefit from having Bill with us, not just Thursday, but the Thursday and the Saturday sessions. The second person who's participating in conducting the training is Rob Burke, who is the community development educator in our own Door County University Extension. He's been a consultant since the beginning of the Door County Civility Project. He brings much expertise and experience to the table in working with local governments and communities, and he will be a fantastic local resource to us. And the third person would be me. I'm going to be working with these two gentlemen in providing the training, and I'm a retired educator and volunteer with the Door County Civility Project, and I've had training in conflict management and mediation skills, that kind of thing. And I have to say, since I've been meeting with all these local government groups, I feel like something else I can bring to the table are little things that I picked up from the various groups around the county. Our registration form has a place for you to list a question. There might be a question that you have about an issue or a process that you would like Bill or Rob or myself to address. So we did, on our registration form, allow space for you to identify a specific question that we in turn can use in planning the information that we provide at the training. So I look forward to being back up here in May, twice, Thursday and Saturday. Thursday, May 29th, Saturday, May 31st. And I hope one of those two sessions will fit your busy schedules, and ask again that people pre-register. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions from the board?
No, good man.
Anybody in the audience have a question?
Thank you. Keep in mind, it's a free workshop.
Okay, guess not.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, going on to, excuse me, number 10 on the agenda, consider closure of Cedar Shore Road from Highway 42 to the launch ramp for Old Ellison Bay Days. Activity on June 28th, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Bud?
I got a letter here from Kim Madke-Shumway asking to be on the agenda for the Service Club to close Cedar Shore Road from 42 to just before the launch ramp on June 28th from 7 to 11 p.m. for a street dance for Old Ellison Bay Days. I got a subsequent email from Kevin Roberts of Bayview Resort saying that they will be having people come in probably during that hour, seeing it's a busy weekend for them, and they just want to make sure that people can maneuver their way around and come in the other way on Cedar Shore Road when they arrive to spend the night or the weekend at the lodge, at the resort.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to grant the request so we can have discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Mulligan, is there a second, please?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Forkert. Any discussion on this issue? I think this has been done for quite a few years, if I remember correctly. So it's
Yes.
pretty standard procedure. All right, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Going on to number 11 on the Plan Commission. You got anybody down for 11?
Jim, are we 11A?
Yes.
Mr. Case is on 11A.
Okay, do you want to make your comments now, please?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and fellow supervisors, I appreciate the opportunity to appear tonight on behalf of Lindham Lane Legacy, which is an LLC formed by Steve Juzombic, Max Wissisk, Carl Dietz, and Michael Brennan to purchase a lot which is on the shores of Green Bay, which is identified in the proposal which is presented to you with the petition for a zoning change. The thought is to change the zoning from SF 30 to SF 20. The goal of that is to comply with the goal of the zoning ordinance of Door County and to make the property on the shoreline more consistent with the goals of the zoning ordinance. The lot in question is a single unimproved lot, 3.6 acres, 1,000 feet deep, 260 feet in the rear boundary, but only 35 feet in the waterfront. It is a leftover of a rather haphazard creation of lots within that section of the shoreline. To the west are a series of lots which are typical and structured, but all non-conforming under the current zoning of SF20 because their lot frontage is only 75 feet. To the east, there is an amalgam of lots which were created along Pebble Beach Road. I cannot describe the logic nor the foresight in creating those, but they have functioned within the family. The Lindum family, I think, is traditionally well-connected, and in fact, John Lindum is here tonight as what I call the elder statesman of the family, should he be called upon to speak. The purpose of the zoning change is to simplify the zoning along the shoreline and conserve the waterfront. There's no intention to change the existing development, but simply to restructure the existing lots within a narrow connection between the SF20 and SF30. We believe that the approval will actually support the zoning ordinance purposes rather than conflict with them, which is often the case when zoning changes are requested. I have previously appeared before the Plan Commission and asked that the Plan Commission will be able to present information concerning their recommendation. The details are in the petition, so I won't take your time, which is valuable, in going over the specifics. But I think there are a couple of things that are worth explaining to you and then being available for questions. First of all, the lots in question in particular are linked by a private road called Lindum Lane. So this is not an area which is subject to public access nor public usage in the general sense of public shorefront property. It's an historical family and extended family ownership which has gone on for many decades. And again, I am only pleased to have represented John Lindum and the family members, so should there be questions about that, they're far more eloquent than I to discuss that. The lot in question was acquired in 2013 specifically for general protection and preservation of the scenic and ecological value of the neighborhood. There was some question about shorefront development. There was some question about attacking the escarpment, which was the level of the lowland by the shore and the highland above the bluff. And that was in contrast, in conflict with the county zoning ordinance. The development and negotiation which followed resulted in a suspension of any attempted development of that shorefront lot in violation of the zoning ordinance and the final acquisition of the property by Lindum Lane LLC, Lindum Lane Legacy LLC. Included in the materials that I presented you are a proposed survey. I say proposed because it's drafted but not filed and would not be until there was permission and appropriate circumstances. You'll see that lot number 1, which is a subdivision of the entire lot, indicates that it is substandard in both SF30 and SF20. It's unbuildable. It's too short, it's too narrow, and the 35 front waterfront is just simply unacceptable for any purpose by itself. But lots 2 and 3 in that diagram would show that in SF30 it would not be buildable, it would not be in compliance, but with a change to SF20 in conjunction with all of the lots to the west, those 2 sublots would then be conforming lots and perfectly usable within the county's zoning ordinance. So the benefit is this: instead of having a lot which is non-conforming under any conceivable usage, you would allow a subdivision which would create 3 conforming lots instead of 2 conforming lots. Non-conforming lots, that is. And the way that happens is that the waterfront property would be attached to the neighboring lot owned by one of the property owners, Mr. Wysisk. And in attaching it, as you'll see on the diagram, that would become a conforming lot, creating a waterfront of over 100 feet. And that then becomes a conforming lot under the county zoning ordinance, which is by itself a small accomplishment. It would also increase the width of the development potential, which is also conforming. The other 2 lots, which are behind the road above the bluff and would not interfere with the waterfront, would also be conforming because they would match the SF20 width and depth and acreage requirements, so that you would now have 3 conforming lots, whereas you had 2 non-conforming lots before that. In simple terms, this is designed as a movement to protect and preserve the heritage of the waterfront of Door County. Mr. Jazambek, who's one of the members of the LLC, is present and would be more than happy to speak should the town board choose to have comment. Mr. John Lindum is also present, as I said, as spokesman for the family. They would be happy to answer any questions, as would I, but at this point, I'll withdraw my comments pending further conversation by the board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to place this before the board for discussion.
I would move that the board support this request for a zoning change.
I'll second. Motion by Gaz, seconded by Lowry, to support the zoning amendment map change, parcel number 018-01-07318-312822 from SF 30 to SF 20. Discussion, please.
Well, I just wanted to say that the Plan Commission actually got two looks at this. Lindum Lane Legacy LLC came before us prior to the formal request with what we kind of term a concept review. What do you think? Does this sound like a good idea? And the Plan Commission looked at the proposal and asked a bunch of questions and discussed it on the commission, and we were thrilled. It was refreshingly well-researched and makes a whole lot of sense whenever you can get rid of two non-conforming properties and come up with something that meets the ordinance and takes into consideration waterfront and escarpment protection. It's got our vote. They came back then with at our very next meeting with a formal proposal, and none of us changed our minds. We unanimously said we would recommend that the board support this request.
Okay, any other discussion?
Seemed pretty logical to me.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 11B, do we have anybody on 11B? Thank you, by the way. Oh, you got them out there.
Jim Smith.
Jim, please. Sure. Sure.
My name is Jim Smith. I'm with the Pinker Law Firm in Sturgeon Bay. I represent Keith Hansen, who owns this house out on Kinsey Bay Lane. We applied for a variance to put an addition onto a little sunroom that faces the water. Went before the Plan Commission a week or so ago, and the vote was not in support of the variance.
Excuse me, Jim, we're gonna move you just a little bit. I guess it's not recording, so.
You need to be by a microphone in order for
Oh,
it to be
I thought that's not a microphone right there.
No, you need to be up by the podium.
You want to go to the podium?
Sure, that'll work.
You want this nearby?
Yeah.
Okay, once again, my name is Jim Smith. I'm with the Pinker Law Firm in Sturgeon Bay. I represent Keith Hansen, who owns this property on Kinsey Bay Lane. I was here for a variance application before the Plan Commission a week or so ago and got turned down. One of the comments that the Plan Commission made was that the roof over the addition to the sun porch had been flattened out, so Mr. Hansen got a hold of Mark Isaacson. I had Mark draw up a more sophisticated elevation, if you will, and so I brought that in just to show the board. And I know that a lot of the members of the board were here that evening because there was something else going on where they wanted to be present, and I think most of you guys sat through this Plan Commission hearing. But so anyway, this is what the changes are, that this is what the house will look like with the dome retained over the little sunroom in front. And I'm not going to repeat my entire presentation that I made that evening to the Plan Commission, but I think I stated a pretty good case under Wisconsin law with the Ziervogel and Waushara County cases that this property should have been, that this project should have been approved for a variance. It meets all the criteria, and I feel that I was shortchanged by the Plan Commission, with all due respect to the Plan Commission. I don't think that they took into consideration the requirements of Ziervogel or Waushara County in making their decision. So I'm just throwing this back at the town board. Again, 2 points are, we put the dome back on top because there were complaints from the Plan Commission about what the house would look like without the dome there. They didn't like the flat roof. And number 2, I just feel I didn't get a fair shake in terms of discussion by the Plan Commission, taking into consideration Wisconsin law with regard to variances. And if the Plan Commission is going to take the role of a board of adjustment at this level, I think they need to do more than just say, we don't like the look of the house because it has a flat roof and the dome is missing. I think they need to take into consideration what the law is and have a discussion about that. So I would urge the board to reconsider this and vote in favor of the variance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we need a motion to get into discussion. Nancy?
I'll move that the board support the request.
Is there a second?
That was support the request for the variance, is that right?
Correct.
I'll second that. then.
All right, motion by Gaz, seconded by Pelican. Discussion, please.
If I may begin. The Plan Commission, this was another one of those where the Plan Commission was very tight in its votes. It was difficult to decide. And in defense of the Plan Commission, I will say that we based our discussion and our decision on far more than just the looks of the project. Mr. Smith quotes Ziervogel versus Waushara County, or Waushara, and that is a decision, I believe it came down in 2004. And what it did was it did away with the old definition of hardship, which was no reasonable use of the property, and replaced it with unnecessarily burdensome. But then they failed to clearly define unnecessarily burdensome, leaving a lot of vague and gray area to the deciding zoning body. And that's why we discuss things at the Plan Commission level. There were some members, maybe one, maybe two, that were uncomfortable with the flat roof and didn't like the way that might change the look of it. But I think most of the consideration and discussion centered around the criteria of the law. And those who wanted to see the town board support the variance request believed that there was demonstrated unique property limitation, the ordinary high water mark. They believed that the home would be more useful and it would tend to preserve the property by having it kept up and looking nice. They did not believe that the small addition, although it encroached on the watermark, high water mark, it did not encroach any farther than the sunroom already encroaches. So they felt that the intent and spirit of the protection of the ordinary high water mark was not going to be compromised. Most of the members felt there probably would be no harm to the public interest. Those who spoke in for non-support of the variance did not necessarily believe that the unique property limitations were met. Just because the house was there, they did not necessarily feel that additions could be made to it because they were already encroaching. And I think one of the most persuasive parts of that argument were oftentimes when our Plan Commission looks at a variance regarding high water mark and additions, we look for some kind of true hardship, that like structural, if you don't do this now, is your foundation crumbling, are your soffits going to heck? Do you actually need to put something on to preserve this house, or is it a want? Those who spoke against support felt that this request was a want, not a need. They did feel, those who expressed a wish to see this denied, they did feel that the addition onto an already non-conforming structure would be intensifying the nonconformity by adding more square footage that is within the ordinary, doesn't meet the setback. So, having said all that, we had a very close vote of 4-3 to recommend that the board does not support this request. But, like I say, like the last one we had, this was very, very close.
Anybody else? Lou?
Yeah, and I think Nancy summed it up very well. I have tremendous respect for the research and deliberations that the Plan Commission made. I happen to be among the three who voted in favor of the variance. But again, like Nancy said, it's a very, very close call. And the reason I supported the variance was my idea that, in looking at the law, that the Ziervogel and Warshira cases seem to be trying to objectify rather than make subjective the definition of unnecessarily burdensome. And that still doesn't help because it's still, as Nancy suggested, a very gray area. So I think there's lots of room for diverse opinions to still be solidly grounded on foundation either way. In my opinion, the unnecessarily burdensome criteria was met, so to speak, in that it was unnecessarily burdensome if you take into consideration the statutory intent of the ordinary high water mark. If the addition is not going to go any closer, it's not going to, and I don't want to use the word encroach because there was a very good argument made by the majority on the Plan Commission that if the addition was wider than it is, it doesn't mean it doesn't go out perpendicular to the water, but it's still wider, that with addition, so to speak, is more of an encroachment than what's existing now. Encroachment, as one of the other members pointed out, should only mean going further toward the water. And so, with that in mind, it seemed that the intent of the statute, which is not to get closer than the ordinary high water mark, was not going to, the intent behind that was not going to be jeopardized as a result of the addition that just went horizontally rather than went out any way closer. But again, it was a very close, as Nancy said, a very close case.
Okay, anybody else?
I'll vote in favor of Nancy's motion. And I pretty much agree exactly what you have said there, Lou. I think you've put it well. There's clearly no harm to the public. It is unique property, and I just think that, maybe before I start, I don't think there's a variance alive that really is cut and clear. I'm sure there'd be a few of them, but I mean, vast majority are like this, and I think that this one fits within the three conditions that really need to be met, and so I'll support the motion to grant the variance, or recommend we grant the variance.
Any further discussion? Would you read the motion, please?
The motion is to support the request of the Hanson variance.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment if I can, please?
Sure.
Just on the agenda, it says Plan Commission recommendations. Wouldn't it be fair to everyone if you just said issues that come before, instead of saying recommend passing, recommend not passing, just bring up in future agendas, you see what I mean?
I don't see that necessarily serves a purpose, but
Well,
we'll take it under
applying for
consideration.
variance for,
Yeah, we'll take it under consideration. Okay, going on to number 14. I'll make a motion to consider to review the Heritage Road program and guidelines. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Forkert. Just very quickly, the reason this is here is that the Highway Committee is struggling a little bit, I believe, with where they should go with the Heritage Road program, and has kind of asked for clarification on the part of the board for that. And I know Lou is working on it with a subgroup, if you will, on one particular aspect of it, but not the overall picture. Okay, that being said, I think we have a number of, or at least, Susan, you wanted to make a comment on this?
I'd like to go after Ronix. I'd like to go after
Jim?
Jim, if possible. I don't want to.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Jim?
I'm not going to say anything that you don't already know, but I'll say it anyway. We have the Heritage Roads program. We have the Heritage Roads. We have the Heritage Road guidelines for maintenance. We even have the expiration of the moratorium. And on the horizon, we have art and poetry. What more could we ask? Well, there is one more element, and that's the goodwill of everybody concerned to realize these things, to put them into practice. And that starts at the board level, it goes to the highway committee, and it filters down to the road crew. And if all those people believe in what we have already in place, this will happen, and it'll be wonderful. And I hope that's what occurs. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Susie Watson, Gills Rock. I think the other night when Mike Walker was talking about this, it felt to me like he didn't know much about this program, and also it felt to me like you just thought you just kind of make up what roads should be designated as heritage roads. And to Jim's point, I mean, there's a whole bunch of guidelines, so I don't know what the confusion is. The guidelines are there. Whether or not you're all aware of them all, or have read them all, or believe them all, they are a program right now. And I think what was missing the other night was the idea of who's going to choose a road, and he was saying that it would be him and his committee that would choose the aesthetic factors that would make up a heritage road. I don't see it. So I'm just saying that obviously Heritage Roads was a program created because rustic roads don't protect roads. Heritage roads were meant to protect roads from overly damaging them when they're getting trimmed or mowed or whatever. They're beautiful roads that were to be protected. It really wasn't about, I mean, we'll always have art and poetry about all of our roads, but it really was about protecting the roads from maintenance, frankly, very frankly. And so I think if you guys want to read the guidelines, then if you have all those in front of you, that's your answer to discussing exactly what's going on with heritage roads.
Thank you. Okay, I don't believe we have anybody else. It comes back to the board. Janet has put this together as a suggestion is to possibly clarify some things within the Heritage Road program. And I have a couple notes that I put together. If you go to the first page of the supplemental guidelines, if you hit the second bullet point, wherever possible, consider maintaining the existing width of the traveled roadway as well as existing width of shoulders and clear zones. We have in place a standard at minimum 20 feet travel width. We have then flexed on the clear zones, and we have flexed on the shoulder width. So I'm wondering if that particular bullet point actually becomes moot.
Sorry, John, where are you exactly?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was on the first page. It's called the Supplemental Guidelines for Heritage Road, adopted 1/16/13.
And that was here someplace, right?
Yes, it should be, yeah.
Here's one, okay.
Now, go ahead.
Oops, this is weird.
It was in the box. I didn't,
Where was it?
in the box.
It should have been,
Oh,
Is this open for discussion now?
yeah, yeah.
Why don't I go back and.
Yeah, you wanna check? Okay.
Using mine.
thank you, Frank.
It's up on the screen. Let me do it this way.
Okay.
what I see, I agree with Susie completely. In part, I don't want to say categorically, but in part, the Heritage Roads program was to help maintain the tree line closer to the road. I'm not saying it's the exclusive thing, but it was in part. With the maintenance program that was adopted, I don't think there was a category, a standard. I don't think there was a standard that the town would have a minimum of 20-foot roadways. And when that became, when the 20-foot roadway became the standard, that seemed to conflict with the spirit, if you will, of the Heritage Roads program. And that has not been ironed out from that point in time. In other words, if the Heritage Roads program, as originally conceived, is to be honored in its spirit, a 20-foot wide road should not be the standard. It should be, or could be, less, 16 or 18. And then the other things like the clear zone and the shoulders. And so I think when we went through the transition of adopting the maintenance program for Heritage Roads, we subsequently then said, look, our roads need to be a minimum of 20. That's what we learned from Isle View. From there on, 20 feet should be it. And we learned a lot from Isle View, a lot from the engineers and so forth. And if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think that's where the nub of the problem is. I understand too, in terms of obviously not mowing as severely if possible, which is just ordinary maintenance. But I think the real nub of the problem came with things like Isle View and Garrett Bay, where the road itself is going to be widened, or the road itself is going to be reconstructed or renovated, or whatever the words are, and the width of that road, and then the width of the clear zone, and the width of the shoulders. So there's where I think everybody needs to somehow iron out or reconcile the 20-foot town minimum for a road on the one hand, with the spirit of, the original spirit of the Heritage Roads program on the other hand.
Okay, anybody else?
May I make a comment, please?
No, I'm sorry, it's back at the board.
Well, Supervisor Cavazos asked, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd like to make a statement if I could. I didn't register to speak for this.
Is it all right with the board to allow?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Of course,
I believe the ordinance says for new roads, they should be a minimum of 20.
Sorry. Gotta get you on camera, you know.
I didn't register to speak, I'm
That's
sorry,
all
but I
right.
think,
That's
Lou,
all
when you said 20 feet minimum, I think the ordinance, and I haven't looked at it for several months, states for new roads should be a minimum of 20 feet, not existing roads. So I hope people don't confuse that issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this?
There's no motion required, it's a.
Not
Well,
necess-
one of the things I wanted to comment about, and the highway committee meetings that I've gone to, Mike has nominated several roads. And he said he has more that he would like to nominate. I could be wrong, and, you know, please oppose me if I am, but it seems that the role of nominating or bringing to the attention of the highway committee, those roads which should be considered, should come from the public and from the residents. And that the role of the highway committee should be to take these nominations and apply to them the guidelines, and those which score the highest and the best rise to the top. Out of every 10 nominations, you may have only one that hits on enough of the criteria, not just canopy, not just wildflowers, not just history, but roads that encompass more than just one or two things. And that's the role that I see of the Highway Committee, is to apply those standards and come up with the cream of the crop.
Okay, anybody else?
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please. Mr. Walker said yesterday they've come out and they prioritized the rebuilding of the roads they felt from the worst to the best in a 5-year program of some sort. So if we come out to Road A, let's just say Road A is at the top of the list for being rebuilt, is it determined before or after that that might be a heritage road? And how would that influence the rebuilding of the road?
It
mean,
can-
like
it-
Old Stage
it-
Road is
it can
not gonna be a
It can be either.
Pardon me?
It can be either.
Mhm.
I mean, very obviously, a road, of the existing heritage roads now, at some point in time in the future, are probably going to have to be resurfaced well, probably not reconstructed, but at least resurfaced. So the Heritage Road Program comes into play there, obviously.
Does the Heritage Road Program eliminate the state requirements by the traffic count? Is that basically?
No,
No.
no.
And that's part of what I see as somewhat problematic, or at least has been in the past with heritage roads, is this kind of rush to hurry up and name a road that needs to be fixed, a heritage road, and then get into a big battle over canopy and width and everything else. And it puts the board kind of in a trick bag, because we're under certain mandates by the Department of Transportation, depending upon traffic counts and other things. And as a result, Hugh, just a little history, the board early on in the program decided if, like in the rustic roads program by the state, if a road is up for resurfacing or work, it's off the table to be nominated for a heritage road.
Rustic road.
Since then.
Rustic road. I think
For-
you're right,
for
Rustic road, we also went the same way with heritage roads, and then we reversed that. And said, well, like for instance, in Cedar Grove, we weren't talking about canopy or width, we were talking about a drainage system that has to be redone, but the road still has merit. So we left the door open a little bit. But I guess to answer your question or your comment about like the rustic roads not being available for nomination, as a board, we've sort of by consensus frowned upon it, but left the door open.
And that decision also created a lot of contention because of the logic of saying, well, if the Heritage Roads program is to preserve the road, but we have to wait until after resurfacing to decide whether it's a rustic road or, to decide whether it's a heritage road or not, it seems like it would defeat the purpose, because the resurfacing might do away with the features
That make it a rustic
that make it
road.
a heritage road.
Yeah, okay.
And so there was a lot of contention about which came first, the chicken or the egg then, do we hold off like the Rustic Roads program if something's gonna be resurfaced? Or do we take a chance, resurface the road, and then hope that it looks the way it had been when a heritage road idea was conceived?
Frank?
I was on the Highway Committee and part of the Rustic Roads Subcommittee. There was a lot of work, Heritage Roads, there was a lot of work done by that committee. I have 3 or 4 files that are probably 3 inches thick. The thinking was good, the applications for the public to submit their requests and bring them to the subcommittee was a system that worked. And when the subcommittee was disbanded, there was that responsibility that went to the Highway Committee. I agree with Nancy. that the existing system is a good one. And we should continue to keep it in place and let it function the way it's supposed to function.
I think we need some clarification for the highway committee, however.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
basically why we're discussing this.
that's right.
So, And, well, let me go to the second bullet point on that, on the first page. And to avoid resurfacing deteriorating roads, consider consistent surface maintenance, including crack sealing, filling potholes. We do that already. I think there's every attempt to keep a road well-maintained up to the point, obviously, where it just is beyond that point. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, one reason is the cost of redoing the road. And the second reason is to get the best return, if you will, on that investment that we initially made and keep that maintenance up. So I'm just tossing these things out here that I'm wondering if bullet point, 3 there is kind of a redundancy to what we're actually doing. And then I'll go on to bullet point 4. I agree that retaining the natural features, such as the rock outcroppings and mature trees are important, but there again, we've got to take into consideration, we really have to have an area wide enough, if you will, to provide the safety, and I know there are all sorts of arguments that, if an accident hasn't happened and so forth, but at some point in time, some of those things may have to be removed. And I agree that you have to consider retaining the unique natural features. I'm not sure that it necessarily has to be stated there, although, it certainly can be.
Well, I don't see any harm necessarily in stating it. However, if there were potential harm by stating it, it would be that someone would think then that every single outcropping and tree needs to be saved, and that's just not reasonable. The consideration, the balance, the thought process that needs to go into this all has to be weighed. What is define a rock outcropping worth saving? Is it part of, a thousands and thousands of year-old face of the escarpment with, 800-year-old cedars growing out of it? That's significant. Is it something lesser than that? There comes a point where the natural feature is outweighed by the safety issue.
And John, I understand what you're saying completely, and I agree, but I think this, and Mike Barkey pointed it out, I think the bullet point number 2 still needs to be somehow clarified for future consideration, just in terms of the contention and the turmoil that the town has been through since Isle View and Garrett Bay Roads, and that had to do with the width. If there was any discussion at all when Federally was here and all the discussions of the subcommittee, Heritage Road Subcommittee, it had to do with 16 feet, 18 feet, 20 feet, 22 feet, whatever the width was, it had to do with that width. And that had to do with traffic count, and we had all that brouhaha about the traffic count and what was valid, what wasn't valid. It all boiled down to how wide is that road going to be? Because if it's going to be wider than it is, whether it's, see, and I don't know, then if existing roads, if Mike Barkey's saying it's new roads, that would mean anything that the town doesn't currently even have on the plat maps. But if it's new meaning newly resurfaced, I'm not sure what new means then. There's where I think the board needs to have some kind of guidance. In particular, with Nancy's caveat, which is everything needs to be done on a practical, commonsensical, case-by-case basis. I mean, with the pruning and and what is an outcropping and what, and so forth, as opposed to the width, which seems to have been the real bone of contention.
Okay.
Was there any kind of accident reports considered when you made these?
Everyone,
Huh?
everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Dead squirrels?
I think that was brought up, at least leave trees for the birds to nest, dead trees for the birds to nest in. I mean, you know, and I guess what I'm trying to do is to be able to have, say, back to the highway department, okay, this is what you have to work with. Because right now, I think they're, well, right now, we're floundering a little bit. I think, you know, they basically are floundering a little bit. And it's not that I'm opposed at all to the Heritage Road program. As a matter of fact, I think it's an excellent idea. I think one of the things that has happened with it is over the course of all those discussions that went on and went on and went on, there was a resistance to compromise. Even in the littlest sense, there was a resistance to compromise. And that was unfortunate, because what happened then is that the whole discussion became even more contentious as time went on. And we've got a program in place that I really think needs a little tweaking to make it a better program. And that's basically why I have brought it to the board.
Well, I think you're dead on about the compromise issue. And that's where I come back to, everything needs to be balanced. There has to be a balance to it. And I'm looking at, for instance, 4, bullet point number 5. If practical, consider allowing stands of wildflowers or ornamental grasses to remain throughout their blooming period. I would probably tweak that and say, if practical, consider allowing significant stands. You know, what is a stand? And then perhaps even further define that, something that's 10 feet in diameter or greater. If you leave it undefined, you're gonna get everything from the person who wants to save a single flower to someone who wants everything mowed down, to someone who can look at that and find a balance in between and say, that's a nice group of sweet peas. Maybe they should be left to bloom until they're done.
Well, and you do have, if you leave, and not necessarily wildflowers, but if you leave ornamental grasses right at this edge of the shoulder, you do run the risk of, in this case, a wild turkey in front of a car. And maybe that shouldn't be a concern of ours, I don't know. But I think that's, you know.
Should probably encourage it, John.
Yeah, right.
We have documentation that it's detrimental.
Yeah.
Not fun.
I think, John, it's the one you pointed out for a second bullet point. Consider maintaining the existing width of the travel roadway as well as the existing width of shoulders and clear zones, and reconciling that with the town's standard of a minimum 20-foot roadway. Now, again, I don't know where Mike Barkey's comment fits in. In other words, Mike saying it only applies, the 20-foot only applies to new roads, which I'm imagining as roads that have not even been built yet.
I think that's what the town, isn't that what it means, Bud? I remember talking about this years ago, and it was, if the town is going to take over a road, it has to be brought up to
Well,
those
that's
standards.
by ordinance already.
Right.
That's what I was gonna say.
New road, yes.
We have two of them up here, one on the hill on North Hillcrest, and then the one over by the general store that was made in the woods. They made those to town standards, and that was 20 feet.
Right.
So let's say there's a road that's 18 feet now. That's an existing road, and it's going to be resurfaced. Does the 20-foot minimum apply to that, or does bullet point number 2 say, you know what, this is a heritage road, we want to keep it, and we'll relax the 20-foot minimum for this road, as bullet point 2 says, or at least consider relaxing the minimum, which is what bullet point number 2 says.
I think consider is the operative word there,
Yeah.
because if you're going to do that, then we want to press our traffic counter into service. and make sure that
That's a good point.
the traffic, you know, that is on there and counted, you know, can be
Yeah,
handled by
and
that.
there were those DOT regulations that said so many cars in a certain period of time, you could have 16 foot. And so
Right.
many more cars, you could have 18 feet. And then after that, whatever was required.
I think we finally have all or most of the tools we need to make these decisions. It's unfortunate that we had to go through such a contentious learning curve and purchasing of the correct tools. But I think we have in front of us and in our toolbox, if you will, the things that we need to be able to get the data we need to make the decisions that we need to make.
Okay. So what are we going to tell Highway at this point in time? I've got one more comment, because I don't understand what non-invasive solution is. That's the second to last bullet point. Where drainage appears to be problematic, consider non-invasive solutions and minimal cost while concurrently observing the spirit of the guidelines.
That might be putting in like a rain garden instead of cutting a drain pipe across the road or something like that, I suspect.
Okay.
I think that the key to this, no matter where you come and you get these things all done, is the implementing them so that the people who implement the cutting of the grass and doing the trees and paving the roads follow these standards. I think that's the important thing.
Well, and I think they've done, I know that there'll be disagreement on that, but I think they have done. If you take Garrett Bay for an example, there's usually an outcrop of some wildflower up there. There's a sign, please do not mow, and you see the crews going right around that.
After Garrett Bay, though, remember the comment and the intention was 20 feet minimum on any road that has any amount of traffic at all, in order for vehicles to meet and pass each other. 20 feet was the minimum that was mentioned at that time, because we had the trucks out there and the vehicles, and when it was narrower, and showing that if they stayed on the traveled surface as it was, you're gonna peel off mirrors on your vehicles.
Yeah, that is a
So,
problem too.
so to Nancy's point, then, maybe that second bullet point should be sort of elaborated on to suggest that the consideration be a function of the traffic.
Absolutely. That's the balance.
Because consideration, or consider is the key word there, and that be a function of the traffic then, with 20 feet being the minimum depending on the traffic, as Bud suggested as well.
Except, I will caution that on, because we had that experience on Isle View. We had one of the fire truck tankers out there, and we had one of.
John, would you use the microphone?
Oh, I'm making a comment on Isle View Road. We had Chris Heck bring one of the fire truck tankers out there, and I believe it was one of the Hawker trucks,
Correct.
one of their 5-ton trucks and so forth out there. You know, one going one way, one going the other, and let me tell you, they couldn't pass each other without going off onto the shoulders. And it just, at the time, just struck me that, you know, that creates a rather dangerous situation, especially when you have emergency vehicles. And it does have an impact on the edge of the road a little bit, if the shoulder's not well maintained, so. I don't know, I don't know how many 18-foot roads we have in the town. Probably not many, I wouldn't think. Do you have any idea? I have no idea.
Oh, there's some, but I don't know. I don't have a number.
So the vast majority are 20 feet already?
I would think they are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think they are.
What you described there, John, is probably is a situation that probably wouldn't happen very often.
No, no.
And, you know, to plan for the absolute worst-case scenario is probably,
Well, except, you know, if you've never had a fire, Why buy fire insurance?
I'd like to have all my money back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, do you want to leave the supplemental guidelines as they are? Do we want to tweak that a little bit?
I
mean,
would
we-
like to make a motion that we leave the supplemental guidelines as adopted on 1/16/13 as is.
All right, is there a second to that?
I'll second it for argument.
All right.
Not argument, but for discussion.
Discussion, okay. Any,
What would be added to it? Oh,
no, go ahead.
what would you want added to it or subtracted to it then, Frank?
No, he's saying
saying-
as is.
Yeah, I know.
Leave it
What
as
would
is.
anybody else want to have added or
Oh,
subtracted to
okay.
it?
No, I think the second bullet point, which has been the bone of contention here, should have, as Nancy suggested, some foundation for a consideration. Something to go on other than, something now, the ground rules of the game as we're gonna play it, as opposed to kind of going ad hoc and then creating all the consternation. That if upfront, if consideration is given to traffic, for example, that would give the highway committee a little bit more guidelines as to what they need to do in order to propose a certain width. So rather than go 20 feet, that's the minimum, and clear zone, we'll just say that traffic is at least one of the considerations. That's small, but I think it at least gives the guideline as to how to play the game.
This is sort of assuming, though, that the existing road is smaller than 20 feet.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is it possible, I mean, that some roads may be wider than 20 feet?
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I think that paragraph 2 states it flexibly enough so that it can be interpreted wherever possible.
But like Lou says, it helps to have a standard. What is your consideration? What are you considering? Not just, there has to be, I think, a standard. What are we considering it objectively? I think it should be this way. I think we need to have a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Objective and calculable standard that we're applying. If we get this much traffic based upon probably DOT guidelines or engineering guidelines, we need to consider a road this wide and take it, we need some sort of base upon which to base our considerations. We need some sort of yardstick.
Well, those yardsticks are already there in the DOT recommendations, number 1. And number 2, we have the town standards, don't we, Bud?
20 feet.
20 feet.
20 feet.
But nothing at all tied to traffic, which
No.
is
Well, that's
the
part of it.
biggest safety consideration.
And if we're looking at this by virtue of the fact that the highway committee has asked us for guidance, all we're doing is saying, go back and look at it again, because this is what it says. So in many ways, we're not really helping out the highway committee. I don't know, even by that little clause about the condition about the traffic is going to help much, but at least it gives a little bit more of an objective guideline for them to be able to say, well, this is what, at least what we start to look at. I mean, I think it's a sop, in a sense, it's a small morsel for them to go back on, but we're not helping them otherwise if we don't at least give some idea of where we stand on this.
Let me raise another point on this. Let's go, as I like to do, let's go out 5 years. And let's say that the highway committee in the course of those 5 years has struggled to no end to do the Heritage Road. I guess my preference at this point in time would be able to tweak and make the program as workable as possible so that that scenario 5 years out
Still works.
still works. And that a future board, although they obviously could, but that, so a future board would be less likely to say the program is a disaster, it's not working, out the door it goes. Then we lose all the time and effort we've put in. And I think that would be a shame.
So let me ask you a question. We come up with working on the road and we declare it the road is worth saving and everything like this, it comes to this board, the highway people just don't start on it. Highway people just don't start on it. They bring the proposal in front of this board for a review, right, before they do the work.
Well, the highway takes the nominations, then recommends to the board.
But I'm talking about some of this other stuff that's,
Oh, okay.
says retain unique features and stuff like this. I mean, that would be a given or not?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question.
The highway department, for better term, the men who do the mowing and stuff
Right.
like this, they check with who before they do it? Bud.
Yeah.
So they say, well, we're gonna mow today on Garrett Bay Road or something today. And then the guidelines are looked at in regards to that sort of operation, right?
Yeah. If I am clear on this, Jay basically sets the schedule up, confers with you on the schedule, and then they go ahead. Now, obviously, those schedules are bouncing all around depending on weather and everything else, so. And, well, like this year with all the snow, basically all the brushing was never done because they couldn't get out to do it. Well, they were plowing half the time, but the other half, they couldn't get at anything to do the brushing. But we've kind of gone off track on that.
Yeah. So the motion is, Frank, to just keep this as is that what your motion is?
Yep.
Yeah, I really feel that we're just beginning to get into this. And if we keep changing it, we won't have a benchmark to work from. Anybody can think of a lot of things that ought to be in here. And a lot of the things that were brought up tonight are just supposedly things. I think, work with this. It's only been in effect 14, 15 months. We haven't really been able to see how it works. These things take years to work out and develop. And to make it more complicated, by changing item 2, as you've suggested, John, I don't think is gonna make it easier for us, or the road crew to understand the real intent of the Heritage Road is to make them look nice, because they are, we think, the most beautiful roads in the town. And I think the road crew has done an excellent job.
I agree with you, Frank. I think the road crew has done an excellent job as well. And the Heritage Road program has not necessarily been, up and running for a very long time. However, I see before us with the Heritage Roads program an opportunity to have a real gem in the town, in our heritage roads and in maintaining them. But because of the aforementioned lack of compromise, we spin our wheels. The road crew does do a good job, but yet all of this, all of the Heritage Roads program not only involves nominating and creating heritage roads, it involves compromise so that we can move forward. Nobody is ever going to agree 100% on every single thing about heritage roads, but we get nowhere when we're all tangled up in a big fight for months and months at a time.
Getting back to the traffic count, at some point, I think we need to sit down and determine what the traffic count is gonna be. Because right now, we have a count on Garrett Bay Road of 809, I believe it is, which according to DOT standards means a 22-foot road. So on our other roads now where we set our counter up, sometimes we've got a low count and then we take it through the weekend or the time period we set it up, the count jumps way high. So you got to figure out, and we don't have the DOT formula that we're going to be using at this point, unless we can tie in with them that they figure an ADT for us for that road, what exactly the traffic count is going to be that we're going to work with.
Can give them the spreadsheet that comes from our traffic counter or that transfers to our, and just say, can you apply your,
At one
bean
point,
counting
at
stuff
one
to
point,
this?
they did indicate that if we interface with them or whatever you do to get into their program, and that would, they could use our numbers with confidence, they could come up with something. Now, and people will say, well, you know, you're taking them on the weekend or 4th of July or whatever. The count on Garrett Bay Road, which came up with a 809 ADT, was done the first part of May. And that was done by the DOT back in 2009, I believe. And that's their official number that they use for that road. So that's where they come up with 22 feet.
Yes, but on the other hand, we know that the DOT is withdrawing from doing traffic accounts for municipalities, number one, and they've largely washed their hands. And this is why I think, you know, we have a lot more freedom than we did in '09 and in previous years.
But they have not washed their hands for the trip money. That's the caveat. And what has happened on Garrett Bay Road, excuse me, is they're using their count. On another road, I'm assuming because they're not gonna take those counts anymore on local roads, they will use our count. No matter what, you know, who does the counting, they still have the standards that they apply for the trip money. So right now, the town is facing the fact that on Garrett Bay Road, they have a traffic count that they are using that says, if you are going to receive money from the state, that road has to have a 22-foot wide travelway. Plus, I believe it was a 2-foot shoulder, right?
Yes.
And then a clear zone of, I believe it was 10 feet.
That was $20,000 you get for that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of, you know, and obviously what we have the option in the case on Garrett Bay, they will usually will allow you to take that money and apply it somewhere else within that 1 year, usually. But they don't have to do that.
Assuming that the second road
Meets,
meets their
Meets-
traffic counter
Yeah.
width and all this other stuff.
yeah. So we're kind of, you know, even though we'd like to think that we, you know, we're outside of what the state tells us to do, we are to a certain point, but if we want the trip money, we're caught back into that. So, anyway, we seem to be dancing around the bush here a little bit.
Yeah.
There is a motion on the floor.
I'll call the question. I can't, because I made the motion.
You want to read the motion, please?
The motion by Frank, seconded by Hugh, is to leave the supplemental guidelines as is at this time.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Let's then go to, let's start taking up the yellow ones. These are all suggestions for discussion. And anybody else that has something they want to toss in. Section 2 under definitions. Oh, they don't have it? Okay.
I have it.
You do.
Oh, okay. I thought they had, so. I thought everybody
I
got
got
that.
it.
I got it.
It came out in a computer, I thought.
Yeah. Lou should have got, or.
Definitions
You
as
should
you-
have gotten it. You got it
Well,
right,
these
yeah.
are bid notes, yeah.
She may be referring to the colored ones. Well,
She's highlighted
Lou's
them.
got it. Okay.
Is it up on the screen?
No,
No.
Janet went to run
I
some things.
think we all
off.
ought to have it, including the audience. Here, this is it. It's number 15, isn't it, on your list?
No.
Looks like this, right? Pretty sure. This is,
Yes, that's it, you.
I don't have that one.
Okay.
It wasn't in my inbox. Thank you.
And just remember, these are things that basically Janet has put together as points for discussion.
What's that? Hugh had his.
Okay. And go to definitions, number 2, section 2. In the comment on section, the section 2 is definitions. Number 1, heritage road means a town road in the town of Liberty Grove which has been identified as worthy of a maintenance treatment designed to preserve its significant character as distinct from the routine maintenance performed on other roads. This character may be heavily wooded with trees close to the roadway, a canopy of overarching tree growth, a stand of unusual and striking trees and/or shrubbery along the roadway, a growth of wildflowers or grasses of particular interest along the roadway, a vista open to a special rural or water view, a road with significant history expressed in its physical state or other characteristic which warrants preservation. And the question before us is there too much emphasis on the tree aspect, wildflower aspect, if you will, or not?
I personally think it is a little heavy on it, and I wonder if it couldn't be redefined more succinctly, like the aspects to be considered vegetative, cultural, historical, with bullet points instead of making it so broad and generic.
Well, and cultural is a good point. Hadn't thought about that one, Mike.
so why didn't someone come back at a future thing instead of try and hammer this out tonight and say, here's
We
what I
could.
suggest?
We could.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Well, haven't had a chance to really take a look at it, and Frank didn't find it, so maybe that's the smart thing to do, is to come back to it. That being the case, I'll make a motion to table this discussion until the next board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mulligan, yes.
You,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Nancy,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
carries 5.
Okay, we'll revisit this. Everybody has homework. Don't necessarily have to do it tonight, but you do have homework.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, consider wood material for the best practices at Sand Bay.
At the last meeting, we had prices on using natural cedar instead of the treated lumber, because the preference would be that the natural cedar would be a better look and maintain its shape and characteristics longer. We did have Mr. Rass, from Rass Construction, get numbers for us, and they all came out higher with the cedar. So I contacted Soil and Water, and they said that they would not pay for anything over and above the quote that was originally made by Rass Construction for the treated lumber. And if the town wanted to do that, we would have to spring for that ourselves. So that's where we're sitting now. They're waiting for a number, for a determination from the town before they go ahead and do the construction at the parks of the boardwalks and platforms.
But I got a question about Mr. Rass getting these numbers together. Is this cedar quoted from local sources?
He went to Lambert's and did that,
He did, okay.
yeah.
Okay, just for the sake of discussion here, I'll make a motion to proceed with the treated lumber on on the project that's both the Holtz and Sand Bay Parks.
I'll second that.
All right, now I'll open for discussion. Do you need clarification on what we're talking about?
No, actually, I chaired the Soil and Water Department for 12 years before I
Okay.
come
So
here.
you know what they've, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I can tell you that we took the Secretary of the DNR to the village of Egg Harbor, which has a treated lumber, also to the Ridges Road Beach there, I forget the exact name of, that has the treated lumber. It works fine. And Secretary DNR was quite happy with it.
Okay. The course, if I remember correctly, the course of our discussion was the fact that, from a, what do we want, appearance standpoint, that the cedar would be better looking. I believe that was the crux of the matter, if I remember correctly.
And last longer
And last longer.
Require
Yeah,
less
it would
maintenance.
last longer, that's true.
See, I disagree, I don't think it lasts longer, I think it wear out quite a bit sooner.
Okay, any other discussion? It would, if I'm correct here, the figure to the town would be a total of, what is it, 20,000 additional?
You got these, three numbers here. You got 16 plus 17, you got around 35 grand.
About 35,000
We'd have-
additional to do the,
we have to
the cedar,
find.
so.
John, I signed up to speak on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I just
Please,
ask a
yeah.
question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's okay.
My question actually is about the cost of this, and if you guys could tell us what amount of this is paid for by Soil and Water, and what amount of it is paid for, what percentage is paid for by the town,
They're picking up the whole tab.
the whole thing, except for if you were to go with a fancier wood?
Right.
Okay, so I'm just going to suggest that since there's so many issues with budget, that this would be a real no-brainer.
Yeah, and they have, but if somebody's been out in the Sand Bay, they've been working down there for quite some time now. They're putting in
Putting the
drainage
tile in.
tile on that. Okay, would you read the motion, please?
Motion is to proceed with the treated wood for the projects at Holtz and Sand Bay Parks.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Consider registration for Board of Review audio training. Janet, have you got that, or does Bud got that one?
I've got a form here from the Towns Association, and this comes through the UW Extension. We need one person at least that goes through the Board of Review training, either the continuing or the basic. None of us went to the Towns Association district meetings this year that had the training sessions, so none of us are certified at this point. There is one being put on in Green Bay by Charity Burr. I forget what night that was. That was, it might have been done already, I'm not sure. But we can do a dial-in here, as shown on your handout, and do it here in the conference room for three different days, whichever day would work out for the best here, April 29, May 5, or May 8. So we'd go through that, register, and then be certified. Everybody doesn't have to do it, but a couple of us should.
What time of day are those?
10:30 in the morning for the 29th and May 5th, and then 2 in the afternoon for May 8th.
How long is the session?
About an hour and a half.
10:30
No,
to
actually 2 hours.
2 to 2
2 hours.
2.5 hours. 2 hours
Okay.
and 20 minutes.
I'm free any of those days. 29?
29th work?
Of April.
Yes, April.
And that is at 10:30 in the morning?
10:30 in the morning.
And what day of the week is that?
Tuesday.
It works, I guess.
Yeah, we have a Tuesday or Monday, May 5th, or Thursday, May 8th. Should we just go ahead and schedule it for
29th.
Okay, I'll make a motion to schedule the Board of Review, annual Board of Review basic training, and schedule it for 10:30 on April 29th. For a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And by the way, anybody's welcome to come to that.
What time is that again, Frank?
That's
10:30.
10:30. Peter, you got that all right?
I'm interested in
Yeah. And so everybody understands, the Board of Review, that has to do with when your value comes out on what your taxes are gonna be. You can come before the Board of Review, which basically is the town board, and state your case as to why you think your taxes are too low.
Too low.
Or too high.
Right, or too high. I am not aware of anybody coming to us complaining that their taxes are too low.
You're taking walk-ins to this training session, or do we have to let you know ahead of time?
If we do it in the conference room, well, actually, we could do it out here, couldn't we?
It's audio.
It's audio.
You'd be better off to do it in
Yeah.
the conference room.
Yeah.
If you can, let us know, because we are constricted,
10:30.
10:30. Okay, on to committee appointments. Who do I have speaking on this one?
This is 17.
Suzie Watson and Carol Moronic.
Carol was first.
Carol?
Carol Moronic, I hope I can read my notes. I've had to change so many things around. I don't know if I can find the words here, but I will try. Basically, I believe that you have a dilemma right now. Agenda item number 17 relates to committee appointments, and also directly to the motion to which you referred, excuse me, earlier, Mr. Chairman, earlier this evening, at this meeting. The motion deals with our request to restructure committees in order to avoid the possible perception of or potential conflict for, a potential for conflict of interest related to employees serving as voting members on committees. And it was passed for the third time last night at the annual meeting. So therefore, I was hoping and assuming that as a board, you would need to discuss this motion as part of Agenda 17, item 17, which has to do with making appointments to committees, because you would need to address it at some point. Now, you're talking about discussing at a meeting, at the next meeting, I assume, which is, how soon is that meeting going to be? Are we on a monthly schedule now, or every other week? Are we back on the regular schedule for board meetings?
Not yet.
Okay, well, at any rate, is there any reason why you can't discuss, since they are related, the motion this evening as part of agenda item number 17? Can you do that? And if not, I believe that you should not proceed with agenda item number 17 until you have addressed this issue. On the other hand, if you do proceed, and the motion is implemented at the next meeting, will it still be possible to make the changes necessary if you announce tonight appointments this evening? I think it's, as I said, it's a dilemma, but I'm wondering if there's any possibility of incorporating it this evening. Is it possible?
We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
John Scott.
Oh, John, I'm sorry.
Actually, I have a question, not a statement, I'll just ask it afterwards.
Susan?
Yeah, from last night's meeting, this question about committees and who's on them, and it came up from Nancy when she said that it was hard to get people on committees, and so that was how it began, getting people who were not local to our town to be on committees, because it was difficult. And at that time, you know, both John Skogsbakken and Hugh offered to be on that planning commission. John, who talked to Nancy later, Nancy told her about the terms of members of committees, that there are terms, just like there are terms for you here. I asked Frank about that on the way into the building tonight, and he said there's no such thing as a term on a committee. So I think, first of all, you have to decide if that's really a real thing or not on the committee.
Commission.
Oh, on the commission, there is a term? Okay. So I think, regardless of that, I think that residents or property owners should probably get priority on committees over non-residents and non-property owners, would be great. And so that they can be replaced by people once you get, you know, some volunteers like this, that could replace those people that were not residents when you couldn't find anybody. And also, I think we'd really like to see all committees headed by a board supervisor. That way we would have much more of a connection, and you would have much more of a connection to what actually happened in a committee. And if there are too many committees for that to happen, a board supervisor to head each committee, then maybe there's just too many committees. I really do think that 18 is too many, and I think that it really stretches the resources of your board. And possibly, if they aren't important enough, then you could just cut back on committees. But I think we'd really like to see our elected officials heading up committees, since they make so many important decisions, which are usually passed at the board level. So we'd really like to see the people we elect be ahead of each committee. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I would caution on property ownership. I don't think requiring somebody to own property in the town.
I said resident or property ownership.
Well, I'm going back to property. I think that's a kind of a dangerous situation to suggest.
I'm saying both, so that would be a renter with
Oh,
a
okay.
resident.
All right.
Property owner would be someone who owns property.
And the second thing is that all committees, the decisions always are final here. That's it. All committees recommend to the board, this is the group that makes the final decision, so.
The other thing that came to my mind is that we already have an ordinance that states property owners and residents have preference over non-property owners. However, having said that, I would certainly not support throwing someone off whose term isn't up yet. If there are people like John came up to me last night who have said I would volunteer for Plan Commission, that's fine. This year, however, the two people that are up for either re-upping or leaving, so should they choose, are both residents. So I don't think it would be fair to throw, especially on the Plan Commission, where there is a significant amount of training involved before a person is up to speed. I would certainly defer to our ordinance if and when the time comes that a person who is not a property owner in Liberty Grove has their term up. But I don't believe in ripping somebody out mid-term.
Even if you have someone experienced like you offering to be on that committee.
Hugh,
Well, I'm just kind of curious, why is the planning a commission and not just a committee?
Had to be to do the smart growth plan.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, back to the board. I think everybody has commented. I've got the suggested appointments. I will tell you right now that the Highway Committee appointments are not here. I have a number of things I'm bringing to the board at the next meeting in discussion of that, and one of those is the ongoing suggestion that there's a conflict of interest there, and And I think we need to address that, and that's why I asked Carl if he is familiar with a specific item there, that be brought before us. I think we need to, we've discussed that at the last 3 meetings, after the annual meeting, and concluded that that collectively as a board, that we did not feel that was a problem. So I think we will come back and discuss it again, and I'm going to have a couple other suggestions at that time as to how we handle the highway committee. That being said, if you want to pass these down, and I'll go through these one by one. Some people are going to be happy, some people are not. So. All right, we have 2 members on the Plan Commission that their term is up, and I'm going to make a motion to reappoint Lou Cavazos and Michael Mercier to a 3-year term on the Plan Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion?
Well, I would think that I'm probably better qualified than either one of those gentlemen to be there.
Okay.
And I just do, I've had years and years of experience of doing this, John.
Hugh, have you been through the variance training? When was your last training on variances and CUPs?
I've had 12 years on the RPC.
When was your last training?
I haven't, the RPC doesn't have training. And so I've been 12 years on there. I've worked in zoning in the East Coast, I've worked with zoning in the West Coast, different projects. And I've worked with the city of Sturgeon Bay, the village of Egg Harbor, all this sort of stuff. In the village of Ephraim, I'm on the planning committee for Sister Bay. I feel that I'm qualified to be on the planning commission.
I personally feel that our plan commission is in great shape. And Lou and Michael have been dedicated, hardworking people who have gone through the training. And has every single one of our plan commission members. I would like to see both of them stay. We need them, and they're part of a very effective team.
Any other discussion? The motion before us is to reappoint Lou and Michael Mercier. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Put me on the record as being opposed, please.
Motion is carried. Library Board, again,
4 to 1.
4 to 1, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't vote on that, though.
Oh,
But I mean, I'd vote for Michael, but I don't know about for myself.
is that to be a abstention?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Library Board, again, the same situation. We have 3 members, and I make a motion that we appoint Frank Forkert, Margot Warch, and Henry Tim. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion, please?
That's been a very effective committee. We've been working together, and I think it should stay the way it is.
Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Sister Bay Utilities Committee, it's the same situation again, existing members, and I'll make a motion to appoint Peter Sauer, Fred Anderson, and Frank Forkert. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second? Discussion?
Again, our agreement with the village is that we have to have somebody from the utility district, somebody from the board, and
At large.
we have what we need here.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And the same situation on Utility District Number 1. I move that we reappoint Keith Breidenhagen, Fred Anderson, Peter Sauer, and then, I'm not sure on this, is Jim appointed by us, or is he?
Hired.
He's hired, so we don't have to appoint him, so. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, Peter, sorry.
I was wondering, Keith seems to have a lot of trouble getting to the meetings. Have you talked to him about continuing?
Keith?
Are you talking about Keith or Jim?
Keith.
Keith, no, I have not. I was not aware of that.
I don't know, he sometimes we have meetings without him, but,
Okay. All right, I'll talk to him and see what's the situation. Your meetings are normally in the morning, right?
we usually do 4:30 because Jim has,
Oh,
has problems getting, he has his own job and then he comes out.
comes here, okay.
I guess we could probably continue. I'm the vice president, he's the president,
Okay.
and Fred is the treasurer. And we can manage, but
All right,
maybe just talk to him.
I'll get ahold of him, okay. Thank you for bringing that up. In the case of personnel and health, safety, and welfare, that is the town board. On the IT committee, again, it's a matter of the people that are on there. And I would move David Studebaker, Jack Travis, John Dwanch, Michael Mercier, and Frank Forker.
Second.
Second,
All are
discussion?
making substantial contributions and attend when they're here.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And economic development, again, we have the same situation. Nobody has indicated they'd like to be off. And I would nominate Mike Mercier, Mary Kay Shumway, Fred Anderson, Darrell Jaruzelski, David Studebaker, Jim Sequist, and myself. Is there a second?
Second that.
Yes. Mary Kay Shumway. Yeah.
Did she resign from the committee because she moved to Sister Bay?
No.
No,
she
she
didn't.
resigned from
Okay.
plan.
Discussion, please? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And I abstain on that. Motion is carried. Finance Committee, I'm suggesting that we include an additional 3 people in that. They're all non-board members. They have varied backgrounds. And I would, at this point, nominate Nancy Gaz, Lou Cavosos, Janet Johnson, and new would be Fred Anderson, Paul Schwengel, Diana Wallace, and I sent around a sheet on Diana that was on the back of her background, and Hugh Mulligan. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Discussion, please.
I guess I've been under the assumption that the board was the finance committee.
No. No.
I think with the changes have come, and I hate to speak for myself, I think I've been a pretty good active member in that committee. And to bring new people on, we're just going through a change, I don't think is, because you want to get the best people around you can that have the experience and knowledge.
Well, Frank, my rationale on this is that we are good, in the case of the 3 new people, we're getting a much wider variety of backgrounds to begin with. And in the case of Hugh, I think we need to get Hugh involved because he's expressed a lot of concern about the finances of the town and so forth. And I think it's very important to have him on there as that voice.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, though, you know, I welcome anything that Frank has to say, and coming to the Finance Committee meetings, just like Gary did, throughout the entire
Yep.
budget process last year, as did Michael Mercier, for example, would be just as valuable to the committee as it is, Frank.
Thank you.
Well, yes, and we have to remember that the buck, if you will, stops here. Everything comes to the board. It's basically the board is going to make the decisions, so.
I'm just wondering, will we have to pay for Paul Schmengel to come? How much is that gonna cost?
35, as it does for everybody else.
How much do you get paid here? I have no idea.
You have to be here 3 years and then then you get reimbursed.
Good, then I don't have to make the suggestion we drop the.
Yeah, right. Do you want to make a comment on that?
How much we get paid?
Yeah. It's
Board
a,
members are paid $5,000 a year.
yeah,
Chairman is paid $10,000 a year. Committee members are paid $35 a meeting,
right. And then there are per diems for travel. So,
outside of the town.
yeah, it's be outside of the town, so. it's just-
Sister Bakeouts?
Well, Sister Bay's outside of the town, but it doesn't really count. Well, yeah, it would count, come think about it.
You live in Liberty Grove.
Well, what if I travel to Sister Bay for a meeting?
If the meeting is in Liberty Grove, you live in Liberty Grove.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Parks and Properties. I nominate Lou Cavosos, Christine Breidenhagen, Gary Farber, Frank Weber, and Hugh Mulligan. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, please.
And I would hope then that Jay would be able to continue to at least advise as he has been.
We are asking Jay to advise.
Great.
Yes.
Is
And
the
he-
top person the chairperson of these committees, is that what you?
the committees all will select with the exception of the Plan Commission, the committees now will decide on their new chairman or existing chairman. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. The Ellison Bay Harbor Subcommittee, Lou Cavosos, Gary Farber, and Hugh. Is there a second?
Before we go ahead, John, there was a Rowley's Bay subcommittee.
Can we get to that in a
Okay,
minute?
all right.
It's on the list. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion, please. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Whoops. There were two of us. I didn't hear.
I said aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Lou abstained. Coastal Byways is now like the GEODC Niagara Escarpment, basically has a life of its own, but we need to appoint a representative. And I make a motion that we continue with Ann Miller as our town representative on that, considering that she basically created the coastal byways on her own.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And again, in the case of the GEODC Niagara Escarpment, I move Nancy Goss to be our representative on that.
Second.
Discussion, please. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Fire Commission basically is, will, again, keeping the members that are on there, and I'll move Nancy Goss, Frank Forkert, and Lou Cavosos.
I'll second that.
Second. Discussion, please. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Tourism Zone, again, our Tourism Zone Commission, again, I move we appoint Frank Forkert.
Second?
Discussion?
Is that typically just the collection of the room tax that is its main thing? There's vacancy on that now, you understand, too, on that board.
On the executive board,
Is that where it is?
I believe that's where it is.
Yeah.
That's where it is, yeah. And actually, what's happened on that group is that the executive board meets monthly, I believe, but the entire commission itself meets quarterly.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an executive committee meeting tomorrow.
yeah. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the Heritage Road Subcommittee, which basically has been done away with, although it's still listed, so I just recommend that we disband that at this point in time. And I'll make a motion to that effect. Is there a second? Discussion? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Opposed.
Okay.
I think that.
Of the Heritage
committee,
Road?
It should function.
Opposed? Okay. It's a 4-1 vote, then, if I'm correct. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, in the case of the Raleigh's Bay Subcommittee, until we get the thing ironed out with the DNR in reference to when that is going to be turned over to the town, and also the Bike Steering Path Committee, because we haven't really fully gone through to see if that bike path is working. I would suggest in that case that we both temporarily suspend those committees. They're not meeting anyway, so. And then when we get closer to a point of decision, we just bring them back online.
The Door County Highway Department, I think, got a grant of like $120,000, and they're currently planning a nice bicycle routes through the county, I know that.
Right, right. We already have one in place. And I don't know if they'll take a look at what we have or not. I would
Yeah,
assume
it's
that
being
would be the case.
incorporated
Yeah,
with the county plan.
yeah. Okay. That brings us,
Are we gonna vote on that or no? Just,
oh, yeah, you want to vote? Yeah, we should vote on the temporary suspension of Raleigh's Bay Subcommittee and the bike steering. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay, got to get back to my agenda. Okay. Operator license. There are none. We're moving right along. Correspondence, there is none. Oh, there is.
there is notification from Gibraltar that Fred Anderson and Wendy Minton have been re-elected to the Gibraltar School Board. 2 applications for proposed dock modifications, proposed riprap in both instances, one at 12063 Cedar Branch Road and the other at 12065 Cedar Branch Road. The first one is from Jim Smith, and the second one is from John Finn.
Those are the applicants?
These are the yeah. Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department Annual Financial Report, and statements by Kerber Rose on the audit of the outfit, April report of the Towns Association magazine, the Wisconsin 57 resurfacing project, Bailey's Harbor to Sister Bay. There was a meeting on March 18th. If anyone wants to comment on this, the comments are asked to be responded or turned in by April 18th. As Jeremy Ashauer, who ran both meetings in Bailey's Harbor, said that if there are concerns, you really need to get them in on this piece of paper because they don't really pay much attention to verbal input.
But on clarification, is it true that they're gonna close 57 to put that new bridge in this
Yes, that'll-
summer or next summer?
That's next year. 57 will be closed with a detour running on Highway Q,
Wow,
Bailey's
that's gonna
Harbor
take
to-
miles and miles.
Bailey's Harbor to Sister Bay, or to
Yeah, mess.
Q and 57, yeah. And the north detour goes from Q and 57 down into Ephraim. I don't know yet, there was some concern about the hill going down on Q into Ephraim, and the suggestion was to turn north on Town Line Drive instead. I don't know if they've implemented that yet or not. The agenda for the Executive Committee of the Tourism Zone here tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The correspondence from the Department of Revenue regarding electronic assessment data, which all assessors have to report their records on electronic format now. A notification from the DOT of the quarterly payment for highway aids of $53,718. The temporary uses issue went to the county board Tuesday. I haven't heard what they did on it yet. The temporary use wording for the town that came out of the RPC was, in the town of Liberty Grove, temporary uses may be conducted for not more than 6 days total, including not more than 3 consecutive days. They took out the wording about going over midnight into the next day. They had a kind of a fairly big discussion on that.
Glad he wasn't there.
Door County Comprehensive and Farmland Preservation Plan Open House Meeting, Tuesday, April 22nd, from 2 to 6:30. All county residents and property owners are encouraged to attend an open house meeting regarding the draft Door County Comprehensive and Farmland Preservation Plan 2035. That's it.
Okay, future meetings.
Tomorrow, the negotiating committee for the town, negotiating participants for the town will meet at 3:30 to work on strategy for the upcoming meeting on May 20th of the utility district to talk about plant ownership. The offices are closed on Friday. There's a status conference regarding Wayne Log Crafters at 3:30 that day. He has obtained new counsel. It's through Davis and Coolthau out of Green Bay or Appleton.
Seriously? Oh,
They-
my
yeah.
God.
They decided on the 7th. That was their date to decide. And now there's a scheduling, or they're calling a status conference on Friday at 3:30.
Do you know who his attorney is from Davis and Kilthau?
I think he said Woods, Stephen Woods, if I recall right.
Good.
I've got it in the folder in there.
Wow.
The 21st, Monday, Fire Board at 8 a.m., IT Committee at 7 p.m. IT is in jeopardy of not meeting because they haven't furnished an agenda yet, so to be determined. We're threatening them with non-meeting. The 22nd, Board of Adjustment on the Hanson variance.
You have a meeting at 10 a.m.
GEODC at 10 a.m.
I'm thinking about sending out a letter to see if, who's gonna make it. We've got one scheduled for May already, and we had one in March. And since it's so close to Easter.
Maybe not.
It's so far behind, I might cancel that.
I'll put a question mark there.
Yep.
Plan Commission on the 23rd, 7 p.m. We just got a application for a variance from Craig Nederson up on near
Camp Zion up in that area.
Camp Zion. They had a variance before, but they didn't do anything on it. That's before the economic downturn, so they didn't get anything going on it. We just got a new application for it now with all kinds of documentation, so we'll get that out. On the 24th, the roundtable with the businesses here at the town hall, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Tell me about that, Mike. What is that?
We've sent invitations out to, to all businesses in the town. And then we have invited local financial institutions, state, we have somebody coming from the Department of Commerce, and we also have somebody coming from the USDA. Janet, am I correct?
Yes.
And what we're trying to do is to provide information to town businesses as to what is available for them to either, to expand their business or to relocate a business and possibly to have somebody locate a business within the town.
Sure. When was that again, Bud, that, any for that
It's the
particular one?
24th.
24th at 10 a.m.
May 24th, right?
And it's open to the public, anybody's.
April.
Yeah, April.
April, okay.
Did I say April?
At 8 a.m.?
10 a.m.
April 24th, 10 a.m., Liberty Grove Town Hall. Also, on the 24th, Ann Miller's father has passed away. His funeral is that day at 10:30.
That's in Bailey's Harbor, isn't it? St. Mary's?
St. Mary's.
Yep, okay.
Looking ahead to May 1st, RPC.
We have that 10:30 meeting on the 29th we just decided on today, but
Which one?
Board Review Annual Training
Yes, 29,
at 10:30.
10:30. Looking ahead to May 1st, RPC, 2 o'clock on Lindum Lane. I am looking at taking off that, or not being here that day, so if someone else is interested in going to give testimony on that, that's May 1st at 2 o'clock. I'll have a letter sent down this week on that one. Monday the 5th, Highway at 8 a.m. Tuesday the 6th, Parks and Property at 8 a.m. 14th is Plan Commission, the next town board is the 21st.
Excuse me, but on the 13th, I believe there's a 1 PM Library Committee meeting.
How come this isn't just given out in every calendar, you just, instead of reading through all this?
We're working on that.
It's on the town calendar, you
Is
can
it?
always check it.
Yeah.
It's there,
What time is that, Frank?
1 PM.
There's a certain amount of revenge when he gives this to us. Reminds us of all the meetings.
Cross-checking.
Cross-checking, yes.
On the 20th of May, there will be a meeting. Didn't check on it yet, Frank, if it's here at the South Station at 4 o'clock of Sister Bay Utilities regarding plant ownership.
Okay, I looked at it up, and it says North Station, so we better both check it carefully.
I'll check it
I
tomorrow.
think it'd be nice to have it here at the town, so our residents could come.
GODC is also meeting on the 20th of May at 10 a.m. in the Peninsula Room at the county.
On the 21st, if the board can meet here at 6:30 to have our initial board review meeting, that will meet and adjourn, and then adjourn to August 20th? August 20th, if you could mark August 20th on your calendars from 1 to 3 p.m. That's the same day as the town board meeting at 7 o'clock. So we'll gear toward having the board review, actual board review on August 20th from 1 to 3. That's the nuts and bolts for the next month and a half.
Okay, before I make a motion to adjourn, I'd like to share with you another quote from Dean Acheson. Perhaps the best thing about the future is that it only comes one day at a time. I move we adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? Nobody wants to adjourn?
Yes, aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Already.